welcome to the latest episode of Enterprising Minds. So Alex and Dave here doing, I don't know, kind of a special episode because we feel so inclined to talk about this. But Alex, why don't you set us up since it was your idea?
Sure. So a little bit of news in recent times, but there's actually been a lot of news for the last about a year and a half now about the use of AI in journalism. So what we want to talk about today is trust. Do we trust an article that was written by AI? If it had a fake byline and a fake author photo, would you trust it a little bit more? Where's your level at? And then what do you think are kind of the greater implications for journalism, given that we've seen a number of organizations now? And one of the most recent ones was Futurism, did an expose of Sports Illustrated. And Sports Illustrated has been caught using AI writers, completely fake names and photos. And Sports Illustrated came back claiming that it's a third party who did all this. It's their problem. They've cut the relationship. And also they believe all the content was human written, even though it is atrocious content that makes absolutely no sense. And I would hope that it was an AI that wrote it, and you can't say that human ever wrote that one. But also the response and belief that somehow, oh yes, this was all unknown to us. We had no idea. We were completely bamboozled by this terrible thing. There's those kind of responses. But this is not this first organization. Actually, if you go to that Futurism article, take a look at some of the links that go out, because they have a long list of doing this with other publications as well. Looking at the AV Club, who else? CNET. There was The Street. A number of different publications that have all.
Yeah, it's definitely not the first.
No, not by a stretch, but it is kind of more than one popular ones, and definitely hit the search kind of circle. SEOs and SEMs, we've been all about this and kind of hearing so much about it within our own circles and media. Lily Ray, who's a well-known speaker and presenter at many conferences, but also she's just been a real public figure since probably early 2000s, 2005, 6, 7, even back when she was more affiliate, but now she does more SEO side of things. But she knew about this. She actually did a presentation presenting it as an anonymous organization who was obviously using AI, I think a number of years ago. So she's known about this for a while. Others have now seen it. And Sports Illustrated, though, is coming back saying that they had no idea.
So back when I did crisis management PR stuff, ignorance is the worst comeback. Like, because nobody ever believes you.
No.
Right?
No, I know.
It's on your site. Yeah. If it is a third-party vendor, you approve that vendor.
Right.
So like internal politics, firing a vendor, fine. You can save your job and your boss is happy that you moved on to something else.
Sure.
Externally with the public, that is a horrible look, Yeah, the thing that was interesting to me with that was you had shared a link to Newsweek and their AI policy. And I thought this was in just a chat between, the three of us. And when I started reading through that policy, I thought it was very interesting because it got pretty specific into, we have at least 3 journalists look at a thing. AI does not replace the need for multiple journalists to, look at a piece, or, the editors will have to touch whatever is created, whether it's via a human or an AI bot. I remember thinking that I was like, okay, this is at least useful. They admit that they're experimenting with it, like every company should be at this point. Right. You're running experiments. You're seeing how you can use it. You're seeing where it falls flat. I I'm happy that, journalists who have a code of ethics are actually playing with it as opposed to, everybody else. Um, but there was no like enforcement piece of it. Like what happens to the journalist that passes something off um as their own? Because that was something that came up in a different podcast I was listening to where they mentioned I was trying to find it while you were talking, but I didn't. So if I find it, I'll put it in the show notes. But there's a survey that came out and it showed like there is a large percentage of people who are passing off AI work as their own, despite company policies to say it has to be created by humans. Yeah. Right. And this is a really big IP problem. If your company is expecting trademark or copyright
that's
or
a really good
else, right?
Perspective on it. You can't copyright that content because there's no human to associate that copyright rights to. So you have that problem. And co-written pieces become murky. There's no real good ruling right now, at least from the US side of things, of whether or not you can be granted a copyright. I think the big case that went through was a comic book, and the illustrations were AI generated, the copy was not. So they granted copyright only to the text part, the copy part, but they would not grant a copyright to the image part of this comic book, which is kind of a major element of the comic book, but it's an interesting case. Yeah, whether or not it's disclosed or not is the other piece, and I think that's one difficulty I've seen also about some of these investigations of different companies of saying whether or not this content is AI created. You can throw it through these different checkers, there's some flags, but there is no definite answer at the end of the day that yes, this person who may or may not exist, may or may not have written this. You can determine the person a lot easier than you can determine the content's origin.
Right. And can you imagine the crazy loss of productivity for any organization? Like if the class action lawsuits against OpenAI and some of these other large language models go the way of the trade associations and the copyright holders, in terms of like training the models on copywritten things.
Yeah.
All of the, how does that spread out to any of the content that was created? Because here's an interesting thing that I've thought about, right? Because I tend to skew towards rights holders. I want human beings to create art. I want them to thrive financially for having good ideas that resonate with people. I don't like the commoditization of fine art. That's personal preference with all the tech stuff, but
sure.
So that's just, I'm saying that on the front end. But when you look at the process of what an artist or a creative person or even business people do to become knowledgeable, we are digesting copywritten work through books, through presentations, through whatever else. We are influenced by those things. And part of me feels torn because it's like I've gone through the same process that these bots are going through. The only real difference that I can come to when I actually like do the thought experiment is the fact that AI remembers everything verbatim, whereas human beings, we can't remember breakfast, so everything gets mashed up and torn into new things naturally because we can't necessarily remember everything verbatim. So is it the same, or is it just worse because of the expectations with the robots? Right. You know what I'm getting at? Or am I just
no, that's an interesting angle because the other one, it's funny, we mentioned it a couple episodes back. It was a DIY group that have a podcast, and they were talking about some of the fun things that they're trying to do with AI to create new ideas for them to create and then basically post on YouTube. Because they're just kind of, every once in a while, the well runs dry of new ideas of what they should create as their content creator profession.
Right.
It was an interesting point one of them made about how heavily can you sample a music track until it's copied? And how many different samples do you need to create a music track? So let's say you're sampling from 3 different songs. You're going to grab a little element, bass line here, a little bit of the beat over here, the vocals from here. You're going to mash them all together, and now it's your own. And if you're sampling multiple ones, that's okay. If it's just one and you're just copying it, then it's not okay. And the more that you get influenced by, the more kind of mashups will probably get produced in your head, like the design for a particular object. You've seen hundreds of them before. They all kind of fit a general kind of look and feel. You're going to produce something that fits in that same kind of category. They'll still have that same look and feel to that object. Right. So I get it, because there's a point there where AI is not doing the mashup piece of it. Basically, it is instead, this is a piece of copy from here, this is a copy from here, we're throwing it together. There is elements to it. When you're talking about the lawsuits, I wonder if maybe the future is individualized private AIs. So you could say that this is the Wall Street Journal's AI. It's been trained on the Wall Street Journal's articles because they have full rights to them. It also has a baseline code in it that understands the English language or whatever language they're going to publish in, and the grammatical rules, spelling rules, and the like that exist in that as well.
Right.
Then they can create an article that, they feed it 5 bullet points and it pumps out 3 paragraphs instead, and they get their copy. Would the AI be as good as the ones that are out there now that is sampling from much, much larger databases? No.
I don't think so. No.
It would be probably pretty repetitive. And there was one that, again, futurism, but they did an article around BuzzFeed. And BuzzFeed was trying to make these random travel guides to random places around the world, like any place, every place, little tiny towns that really there's nothing there, but they're going to create a guide on it. And it was hilarious because they had this very, very, very long paragraph about how it loved to say the hidden gem. Right. So it was like Spain, the hidden gem of Europe. And I was like, what? Yeah, no one knew about Spain before. That was the hidden gem. But it was like literally every single tiny town out of like the East Coast that were randomly mentioned along with everywhere else was called the hidden gem. And it was just hilarious because it basically was so repetitive in using this statement. And some of the other ones that were also about other publications were also running into the same thing where they basically kept using odd phrasing.
I've run into that even with our show and using the tools for social clipping or give me 5 episode title ideas that ultimately I don't use. But, just to get a little bit of feedback or something to respond to, right? There is an overemphasis when you tell it to do something for social or blog titles or YouTube titles, revolutionize your marketing, your sales, your whatever,
superlatives,
unbelievable trick to do. And I'm like, no, most things are a nicer shade of gray.
I almost did this and it almost failed. Don't do my one thing.
Yeah, it's just like, man, I just don't want to do that. If it is a really funny story or some sort of thing that is out of the ordinary, fine, I might keep the hyperbole in there. But
maybe you can throw some parody of it, sure.
Exactly. But that's
another. So that's a really good interesting point to kind of take that with back to the kind of the journalism media publication aspect.
Right.
So oftentimes when different organizations have basically taken on some sort of AI components. They made some pilot, they published the articles may be junk, but shortly thereafter, there's typically layoffs. And while there's consistently statements saying like, oh, we're going to test this, we're going to pilot it, but it won't affect any jobs, so we'll keep all the jobs. And then like a week later, they cut 25 people, and that's pretty obvious. The further point that I just want to make on that is the generic aspect of the copy and how we're losing basically investigative journalism, this very unique form of journalism that basically has the story that is unique. No one else has this story. They're diving deep into a particular topic, pulling on some thread that they thought was a little odd, and they decided to make a whole article about it, investigate it, and create a piece on it. And we're going to lose that because a BuzzFeed quiz is not even close to BuzzFeed's journalism, which actually they've produced some really good journalistic pieces.
Until they fired that team.
Until they cut the entire newsroom. Exactly. They cut the entire thing. And you should see some of their documentaries and the like that they've produced. Are actually, I mean, it's so funny because BuzzFeed I think of as like the WikiHow of the early like internet content farm kind of days. Like they were the content mill of content mills, man. They were atrocious. But at some point, they really got into hiring some fantastic people from some very reputable media and journalism companies and built up one heck of a great team. And then they slashed them all so that they could go right back to the quizzes.
Well, so this is one of those things where AI is really going to force a conversation, or at least I really hope it does, because if not, we're going to a dark place. Certain business models are going to have to change, and certain business models should not or will not be able to stand if they are publicly traded, because you will be forced to go back to the quizzes and the fluff, because facts don't typically pay well, you know.
Yeah.
And so you're going to need to have either state-supported things like the BBC or nonprofit organizations like the NPR areas, or one of our friends and former colleagues, Carlos Abler, has this idea around this very topic that was shouted out on This Old Marketing podcast. And so I'm going to find out more what he's working on. I would hate to speak for it, but he, there is a potential where, I mean, Robert Rose and Joe Polizzi have talked about this for years, where, okay, if you have something like a Target that buys all of the stadium sponsor rights in a particular town because they're from that town and they employ a huge portion of that town's thing, why wouldn't you, as a marketing budget or charity write-off or whatever thing you want your accountants to do, fund the local newspaper so that they don't have to worry so much about all of that, right? I mean, this is not a crazy new idea. I mean, this was happening at the turn of the last century, where you had the company towns.
Yeah, sweet goodness, man, that didn't end well.
It didn't. But at the very least, it would fund something that I hope we're all in agreement is a good thing for society. Investigative journalism is an important thing for society, in my view.
I would agree.
I feel like that shouldn't be a controversial statement, but who knows? This is going online.
I'm sure somebody is concerned.
But yeah, it is I will be fascinated to see how many more companies actually put up a public AI statement. Like, I remember, in one of our previous shows, I brought that up as a specific topic of like, hey, what are you guys thinking about this? I think I'm going to do this for my own personal site, just to plant a flag in the sand. And it seemed a little early days, right? I mean, because who knows? But then all this stuff keeps happening. It's like, yeah, I think you should probably go on record and do that.
This is definitely a topic I want to explore more, and when we get Ruthi back in, I want to go back to that question of, would you trust an article that was written by what seems to be a human? Would you trust an article that is clearly written by AI? And where your lines are, or where's your trigger that says, this is too generic that it's not useful to me, the WikiHow of content, or this is fantastic and it's really useful, or this is oddly repetitive? Like, where are those kind of trigger points for you that kind of point that lever towards, I trust this content and this random site that I don't know of, we'll put it in that context, or I do trust this content? We'll save that for that next episode with Ruthi and continue this conversation then.
Cool. All right. Thanks all. This is definitely a quick hit. Let us know if you like this format. Let us know what your thoughts are on journalism and AI, and where you stand on those topics. So episode show notes will be on the Dave Dougherty Media website. Drop a comment on the YouTube platform or podcast players. Like, rate, review, share, all that good stuff. So thank you, and we will see you in the next full episode of Enterprising Minds. Thanks.